They called me the garage girl. Some laughed, some nodded with fake sympathy. But when their $1 million health app crashed live on stage, they all turned to me. They called me the garage girl. Some laughed, some nodded with polite pity. But when their app crashed, right in the middle of the biggest launch of their lives, they all looked at me like I'd been standing there the whole time holding the answer. And I had. But let me take you back to how it really happened. The MedLife Solutions launch party was held at the top floor of a luxury hotel in downtown San Diego. Spotlights, velvet ropes, gold-rimmed champagne flutes. It looked more like a fashion gala than a tech reveal. The company, founded by my brother, was announcing its new healthcare AI platform. He'd invited me, technically, but I wasn't listed on the official program. I wasn't at the front with the investors or up on stage with the team. I was at table 17, near the back, next to the exit. Lena, my sister-in-law, said sweetly, her voice dripping with that condescending concern only family can perfect. "You're still doing your little design projects, right? From that garage." She laughed quietly, like she didn't mean harm. But it landed just the same. I smiled. Because that's what I'd always done, smile, nod, and let them believe what they wanted. They didn't know that just 48 hours earlier, a hospital in Santa Rosa had used my system to detect early signs of sepsis, 6 hours before any symptoms showed. They didn't know I was leading a remote team of engineers behind a platform used in 4 hospitals. They didn't know the name Vital Thread, because I never put my name on it. Tonight wasn't supposed to be about me. I was just here to support, to smile through it, clap at the right times, and stay invisible. But the system they were unveiling, the one they said would revolutionize patient care, it was about to freeze. And when it did, the only person in the room with a working system wasn't on stage. She was at table 17, wearing the same blazer she'd worked in for 3 days straight, smiling like nothing was coming. But it was. It wasn't always like this. There was a time I thought I'd be part of the team, not the face of it, just involved. 3 years ago, when MedLife was still just an idea scribbled on a whiteboard in my parents' den, I sat across from my brother with a sketchpad and a question. What if we design the interface for patients who don't speak tech? Seniors, non-English speakers, people with Parkinson's who can't tap 5 times just to find their medication log. He didn't even look up from his screen, didn't ask questions, didn't even say no. He just said, "This is medical software, Lena. It's not some app you design for fun." And that was that, dismissed, with a smile that made it sound reasonable. My parents agreed. "He's the one with the degree in bioengineering," my mother whispered later that night, like I was asking for too much just by being in the room. So I stopped asking. I stepped back, took freelance gigs from my garage, and started building something on the side. No funding, no press, just a quiet drive to prove, maybe only to myself, that people deserved better tools to manage their health. The hospitals didn't know my face, but they knew the results. And deep down, I knew something else, too. The next time they told me I didn't belong, they wouldn't get the chance to say it twice. I didn't plan to build something that worked better than theirs. I just couldn't stop seeing what was broken. Every hospital dashboard I reviewed looked like it had been designed by a machine, not for one. Flashing red boxes, tiny text, 20 clicks to find a patient's oxygen history. It wasn't just inefficient, it was dangerous. So I started sketching, then coding, then reaching out to a few people I'd met through open-source forums. One was a sleep-deprived data scientist from UCLA. Another, a systems engineer who just left a defense tech firm. And one, was a retired ICU nurse who reviewed every screen and said, This is what I wish we had." We called it Vital Thread, because it monitored the thread of life in real time, vitals, trends, anomalies, streamed, parsed, and flagged within seconds. Not hours, not after paperwork, but now. We kept it quiet. No logos, no LinkedIn posts, no beta launch banners, just cold testing, quiet improvements, and one hospital brave enough to try it under the table. They ran it alongside their current system. Didn't tell anyone, and within 6 weeks, the results were too big to ignore. One flagged a silent drop in blood pressure during a routine check-in. Another predicted a stroke 12 hours before the symptoms started. 3 patients were saved, all without the families ever knowing our names. That was enough for me. Not the press, not the praise, just knowing it worked. But now, sitting in the back row of my brother's glossy launch event, watching their app get hyped to the skies, I couldn't help but wonder how long before the silence breaks, and what happens when it does. The moment came dressed in applause. Lights dimmed, music faded, and the MC stepped onto the stage like he was introducing the next iPhone. Tonight, we unveil a system that will redefine healthcare access for every American family. Behind him, the giant screen flickered to life. The MedLife app logo, sleek, clinical, perfect, spun into view. Investors leaned forward. Reporters raised their phones. My brother adjusted his suit jacket and gave the nod. And then nothing. The animation froze mid-spin. The screen stalled just for a second. Then the tablet on stage vibrated and went black. In the silence, someone coughed. A loading icon appeared, then error code 2104. The MC tried to recover. Let's try that again. He tapped, swiped, rebooted. Nothing. A ripple moved through the room as devices lit up, not with the launch, but with system failure alerts. Hospital partners checking in remotely were booted out. Patient data feeds stopped syncing. Dashboards turned blank. You could feel it, the shift. Excitement bleeding into confusion. Confusion curdling into panic. I saw my brother's face drop just slightly. Saw our father stand up, whisper something sharp. One of the investors was already pulling his assistant aside. And then one voice cutting through the hum like a needle. "Excuse me, are you Lena Hartley?" I turned. The woman asking wore the badge of San Esteban Medical Center, one of the 4 hospitals using Vital Thread. Her eyes weren't accusing, they were searching. "You're the one who sent us the beta version, the AI Vitals monitor. You built that, didn't you?" I paused, and in that pause the whole room shifted. Every head turned. They'd called me the garage girl, but now they were all looking at me like I was the one holding the defibrillator, because I was. I didn't plan to stand up. I didn't come there to rescue anyone. But when I saw the hospital rep holding her device like it was a lifeline, when I saw my brother frozen in front of hundreds and the system he'd praised for a year lying dead on stage, I knew what I had to do. I stood, walked calmly past the tables of executives and venture capital smiles. One man muttered, "What's she doing?" Another whispered, "Is that the sister?" I didn't answer. I reached my bag, pulled out my laptop. No logo, no company name. Just a black mat cover worn from use and heat and years of hands that never stopped building. I plugged it into the podium port. Fingers steady, voice quiet. "We'll run this live," I said. "Just give it 60 seconds. A technician stepped back. The MC looked like he wanted to say no, but didn't. No one else was moving. I ran the program. Vital Thread booted instantly, no delays, no false loads. Real-time vitals streamed across the big screen like veins coming back to life. Heart rate, oxygen saturation, respiratory flags, AI projections, not mock data, actual de-identified patient readings from the test networks. Every hospital still connected to the system I'd built, still running, still stable. The room went silent, not the kind of silence that asks for answers. The kind that realizes it just got one. One of the screens showed a critical alert flag in orange. The rep from San Esteban stared, then nodded. "That's real," she whispered. "That's one of ours, and it's accurate." My brother looked like he'd been slapped and hadn't decided whether to act like it hurt. I didn't face him. I didn't need to. I just kept typing, just kept working. Because in that moment, I wasn't the girl in the garage. I wasn't the rejected sibling. I wasn't even someone trying to prove herself anymore. I was the one keeping the system alive, and everyone knew it. The screen behind me lit up with a full patient map, color-coded vitals, AI-generated risk trends, alert histories. But it wasn't the MedLife system. It didn't even carry their logo. A man from the press finally broke the silence. "What platform is this?" I turned to face the room for the first time. "It's called Vital Thread, built from scratch. Tested in 4 hospitals over the last 6 months. It doesn't crash, it doesn't guess, and it doesn't carry my brother's name." There it was, the crack that split the air. Someone in the audience laughed, too sharp, too shocked. Someone else clapped, then stopped when no one joined. But one person stood up. Dr. Evelyn Brooks, chief of medicine at San Esteban. She walked to the front, pulled out her tablet, and held it high. "This system flagged a pre-stroke condition in a patient last week. We responded within 5 minutes. She's alive today because of this dashboard, because of her." She pointed at me, and suddenly the silence snapped. Applause, not thunderous, not performative, but real, not for a launch, not for a brand, but for the work. My father looked down. My mother whispered something I couldn't hear, and my brother, he didn't speak, didn't move. He just stood there, caught between shame and disbelief, watching the one person he'd excluded take control of the room without even raising her voice. I closed my laptop. The system isn't for sale, not today. Not until I know it'll be used the right way. And then I stepped down, not to disappear, but because my work had already spoken loud enough. The reporters came after, so did the offers. 3 different investors left cards on my table before I could even finish a sip of water. 2 tech journalists wanted exclusives. One startup CEO asked if I'd mentor his design team off the record. I smiled politely, said nothing. I walked out the side door, same one I came in through. Same blazer, same quiet pace, but everything else had shifted. The platform that crashed, pulled from the hospital pipeline the next morning. The contract, suspended pending a technical review. MedLife stock, down 12% by the end of the week, and me, I went back to the garage, but not to hide, to build. 2 days later, a new email landed in the Vital Thread inbox. Subject line, "Urgent, pediatric ICU unit requesting immediate integration." That night, I pushed the update at 3:17 a.m., no sleep. No launch party, no applause, just stable vitals. Just kids who'd lived through the night. They called me the garage girl. And maybe I was, but garages have built more revolutions than boardrooms ever will. 3 days later, the article dropped. It wasn't a headline I expected or wanted. But there it was, front page of Forbes Health Tech. Who is the woman behind the thread that saved the launch? They didn't name my brother. Didn't mention the crash in the headline. Didn't glorify failure. They talked about Vital Thread. About real-time vitals that had saved 3 patients in the last 10 days. About a system designed not by a tech empire, but by a woman in a garage, working in silence, while everyone assumed she had nothing to offer. There was a photo, blurry, taken from the side as I was walking out the venue's service exit. Hair pulled back, no makeup, laptop under one arm, the caption read, "She didn't take the stage, but she brought the system back to life." And below that, a quote from Dr. Evelyn Brooks, "I don't care where she built it, I care that it works, and she's the only one who built something that does." I didn't reply to the emails after that, not right away. Some were from investors, some from family. One, oddly enough, from my brother. He said, "I didn't know you could do that." And I said nothing, because I'd already done it. Legacy doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to keep working quietly, powerfully, long after the applause has stopped. And that's exactly what Vital Thread did.